In the heart of Cairo, under the scorching Egyptian sun, Dr. Samira Sharif, an esteemed archaeologist, stood before the newly discovered ruins. Her heart raced. The temple that had been buried for centuries was more than just an archaeological wonder. It was a beacon to an unsolved mystery. Her team had unearthed what appeared to be the final chamber of an ancient pyramid, hidden beneath the shifting sands for millennia. But inside, what they found was beyond anyone's imagination. The hieroglyphic tablets lining the chamber's walls weren't just symbolic. They were encoded, not in the language of ancient Egyptians, but in a series of mathematical symbols and geometric patterns that defied explanation. Samira knew the texts were special. This wasn't a simple discovery. The artifacts hinted at something far greater. What Samira didn't know was that these tablets weren't just relics of an ancient civilization. They were the key to unlocking one of the greatest secrets of all time: the Thoth inheritance. The name Thoth echoed through the ages. In ancient Egyptian mythology, Thoth was the god of wisdom, knowledge, and writing. He was depicted as a man with the head of an ibis, holding a scribe's palette and a reed pen. For centuries, scholars had debated whether Thoth was a real figure, a divine being, or a symbolic personification of wisdom. But as Samira continued to study the tablets, something changed. The hieroglyphics, when decoded, began to tell a far different story. Late one night in the quiet of the university's study room, Samira sat alone, surrounded by dusty books, fragmented notes, and her laptop screen. She carefully transcribed a section of the tablet. The symbols seemed to move, rearranging themselves in her mind as if they were alive. She furiously jotted down notes, her heart pounding. The symbols weren't just a code, they were a blueprint. A blueprint for something much larger than anything she had ever encountered. As Samira worked, a hidden message emerged. It was a warning. To the descendants of the stars, the time is now. The inheritance of Thoth is upon you. You must unlock the power, or the universe will be lost to a force older than time itself. At that moment, everything she thought she knew about history, about the gods of ancient Egypt, and even about the very nature of humanity, was called into question. Thoth was not a god, Samira realized. Thoth was an alien, a scientist, to be precise, who had come to Earth thousands of years ago. The tablets were not just divine knowledge, but alien technology, disguised in the form of hieroglyphics. Samira's mind raced as she pieced together the clues. The ancient Egyptians had somehow encountered these extraterrestrial beings, and Thoth had left them with a treasure trove of technology, far more advanced than anything modern civilization had developed. But Samira wasn't the only one who had uncovered the secret. Across the globe, a covert alien species, known as the Xynthar, had also uncovered the location of the Thoth inheritance. The Xynthar were ruthless and technologically superior, and they had been searching for the tablets for centuries, hoping to harness the immense power Thoth had hidden away. They knew that whoever decoded the tablets would have access to an unparalleled technological advantage, something that could either save or destroy entire civilizations. In a dark underground lab in the depths of New York City, a team of Xynthar agents gathered around a holographic map of Earth. The leader, a tall, reptilian creature with glowing eyes, snarled as the final coordinates to the pyramid in Egypt were revealed. "We cannot allow the humans to unlock the inheritance first," the leader said in a cold, mechanical voice. "We must retrieve the tablets and control their power. The Thoth inheritance is ours." Back in Cairo, Samira was unaware of the danger closing in. She had reached a critical breakthrough. The tablets were not just maps to hidden technologies. They were instructions for building a device, an alien artifact that could manipulate space and time itself. The more Samira deciphered, the clearer it became. Thoth had left behind a machine capable of bending the very fabric of the universe. Her findings were reported to the Egyptian government, and soon, the world took notice. A global race had begun. Top governments, scientists, and tech companies sent teams to Cairo to secure the tablets. Everyone knew that whoever controlled the Thoth inheritance would control the future. Samira's team was now working with the world's most brilliant minds. But as they made progress, strange things began to happen. Her laptop malfunctioned, the lights flickered in the study room, and late-night visitors began knocking at her door, demanding access to her research. One of those visitors was a tall man with strikingly unusual eyes. His name was Dr. Michael Graves, an enigmatic physicist from a top-secret government research lab. "Dr. Sharif, I think you're getting close to something monumental," Graves said, flashing a tight-lipped smile. "But you need to be careful. There are forces out there that will stop at nothing to control this technology." Samira was hesitant. She had heard rumors about the Xynthar, but it seemed too far-fetched to believe. She had dedicated her life to studying history, not conspiracy theories. But the more she investigated, the more she realized Graves wasn't just another researcher. He was part of an international faction that knew far more than it let on. "We have to decode the rest of the tablets," Graves said. "The Xynthar are already in play. We can't let them get to the machine first. It's our only chance." As Samira and her team worked day and night, the Xynthar made their move. In the dead of night, a small group of them infiltrated the ruins, using advanced cloaking technology to avoid detection. They had been tracking Samira's every move, and now they were closing in on their target. Unbeknownst to Samira, Graves had a dark secret. He was not just a physicist, he was a double agent, working for an organization bent on using the Thoth inheritance for their own nefarious purposes. The Xynthar were only part of the equation. Graves had been feeding them just enough information to keep them at bay, while he secretly manipulated the research in his favor. The tension reached its peak as Samira and her team unlocked the final section of the tablet's code. The machine Thoth had left behind was real, and it was a gateway, a device capable of opening wormholes to other galaxies, other realities. The technology could alter the course of humanity, but it came with a price. Once activated, the machine could attract the attention of even older, more powerful alien races who had been watching Earth for millennia. As Samira and her team prepared to activate the device, the ground trembled. The air grew thick with tension. The Xynthar had arrived. The final battle for the Thoth inheritance was about to begin. The dust hadn't settled since Samira Sharif unlocked the final secrets of the Thoth inheritance, and already the world was descending into chaos. Her discovery had turned the quiet Egyptian desert into a battleground, not just between competing scientists and governments, but between factions vying for ultimate control of an unimaginable power, one capable of bending the very fabric of time and space. The Thoth device, hidden for millennia, was now within reach. But the true cost of unlocking its potential had yet to reveal itself. Samira stood at the heart of the ancient temple, surrounded by the glowing tablets she had deciphered. Their cryptic symbols, once indecipherable, now formed a clear blueprint in her mind. Lines of code, sequences of numbers, and geometric patterns that led to the device. She looked up from the tablet, feeling the weight of her discovery pressing down on her. This was more than a scientific breakthrough. It was a Pandora's box. Suddenly, a harsh voice broke her concentration. "Dr. Sharif," Dr. Michael Graves said, stepping into the room. "It's time." Samira glanced at him, her eyes narrowing. She had trusted him, once. But now, after the strange behavior he had shown, she wasn't sure who he was working for, or if she could still trust him. "Are you sure you're ready?" Graves asked, his voice betraying a hint of urgency. Samira clenched her fists. She had no choice. She knew what the device was capable of, but the threat posed by the Xynthar and Graves' shadowy government faction was far greater than the unknowns of the machine. "We don't have much time," Samira said. "The Xynthar are already closing in on us. We need to activate the device, or they will." Meanwhile, deep beneath the pyramids, in the darkened underground laboratory of the Xynthar, the alien leader of the rogue species watched the proceedings on an encrypted screen. His glowing, reptilian eyes flickered with rage. "The humans have unlocked it," he muttered in his native tongue, his voice an ominous hiss. "The Thoth device, they must not activate it first. If they do, we will lose our advantage forever." His lieutenant, a sleek creature with silvered scales, bowed low before him. "What do you command, Lord Cycroth?" The lieutenant asked. "We will retrieve the device," Cycroth ordered coldly. "No one, not even Graves, will stop us." Back in Cairo, the tension was palpable. The vast, sprawling temple had been transformed into a high-security facility. Samira's team worked tirelessly, trying to decipher the last remnants of the hieroglyphs that would unlock the final mechanism. The pressure was immense. If the Xynthar reached the device first, they could use its power to conquer Earth, and possibly beyond. Samira could feel the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. This was her moment, the culmination of years of research, of questions unanswered. But as she ran her fingers over the smooth stone tablet, she realized that the answers she sought would come at a terrible cost. The final sequence was complex. The hieroglyphs contained mathematical equations, each one representing a layer of the device's construction. It wasn't just a machine. It was a gateway, a conduit through which power could flow from one dimension to another. Samira was just beginning to understand its true implications when a sudden noise echoed through the chamber. She turned, heart pounding. Graves stood at the entrance, his hand on the doorframe. He wasn't alone. Behind him stood a group of military personnel, foreign, unmarked. Samira's stomach dropped. "You lied to me," she whispered, stepping back. "You've been working with them all along, haven't you?" Graves' face hardened, the veneer of civility slipping away. "I didn't want to, Samira. But it's too late. You don't understand what's at stake. The Xynthar will use the device to destroy everything we know. They will wipe out our civilization and take control of Earth." "You're wrong," Samira snapped, fury building inside her. "They're not here to save humanity, Michael. They never were. This device was never meant for us to control. Thoth's legacy was meant to keep the universe in balance." Graves stepped forward, his voice laced with cold determination. "This isn't about balance, Dr. Sharif. It's about survival." Before Samira could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. The walls of the temple began to shake violently, sending dust and debris falling from the ceiling. Graves' eyes widened with realization. "They're here," he muttered. From the shadows emerged a small army of Xynthar operatives, cloaked in advanced tech, their bodies shifting between solid and transparent. Their leader, Cycroth, strode forward, his elongated form moving with chilling precision. His eyes locked onto Samira, burning with an alien intelligence. "Dr. Sharif," Cycroth's voice reverberated through the chamber, his words dripping with menace. "You have unlocked what you were never meant to. Step aside, or I will take what is mine." Samira's heart raced. The Xynthar were here, no longer in the shadows, but in full force. They had come for the device, and they would stop at nothing to take it from her. The standoff was a battle of wills. Samira stood firm, her mind racing. She knew that the Xynthar would stop at nothing to control the Thoth device. But she also knew the price of activating it. The universe itself could be at risk. "Activate the device, now," Graves shouted. His voice was no longer calm. It was desperate. "We don't have time for a fight. The fate of humanity rests on this." But before Samira could make a decision, something unexpected happened. A crackling sound filled the room. The ancient stone slabs that lined the walls began to glow with an eerie light. The Thoth device, the heart of the pyramid, began to hum with power. The machine, hidden for centuries, was awakening. "Thoth," Samira gasped. "It's responding to us." Cycroth growled, baring his teeth. "Foolish human. You don't understand. The device is a trap. Its power isn't meant for your kind. It will destroy you all." As the device powered up, the air itself seemed to warp. A strange, magnetic pull seemed to tear at reality. Samira felt a shift, as though the very fabric of time and space was beginning to unravel. "Get back!" Graves shouted, but it was too late. The device activated in full force. A blinding light enveloped the chamber, and for a moment, everything ceased to exist. Time bent, space twisted, and the world was no longer what it had been. When the light finally dimmed, Samira, Graves, and the Xynthar found themselves in an alien landscape, far from the ancient Egyptian ruins. A vast expanse of stars stretched above them, and before them stood a massive, floating structure. A structure that seemed to pulse with an ancient energy, one that called to Samira from the depths of her soul. The Thoth device had done its work. It had opened a doorway. But where it had led them was not yet clear. The battle for the Thoth inheritance was far from over. And now, they would have to face a new, unimaginable challenge, one that would test their very survival. The strange alien landscape stretched endlessly before them. Samira could feel her pulse quicken as she took in her surroundings. They had gone from the safety of the Egyptian desert to a place where the laws of reality itself seemed to be different. The stars above weren't the stars she recognized. They were unfamiliar constellations, floating in a sky that seemed to shift in ways that defied reason. The air was thick with an unknown energy, and the ground beneath them was smooth, metallic, yet somehow alive. The Thoth device, still humming with power, stood at the center of this desolate, otherworldly terrain. It was no longer just an ancient machine. It was a gateway, a portal to something far beyond Earth. "What is this place?" Samira whispered, her voice filled with awe. Graves, still shaken but determined, stood beside her, his eyes wide with fear and fascination. This wasn't supposed to happen. The device was only meant to transport us to another place on Earth. Not. Before he could finish his sentence, Cycroth, the Xynthar leader, stepped forward, his sharp claws scraping against the metal ground. His glowing eyes scanned their surroundings. "You should have known, human," Cycroth growled. "The Thoth device was never meant for your kind to control. It leads to the heart of the Nexus, a place beyond time, beyond reality itself. You have opened a door that should have stayed sealed. The truth of Xynthar words began to settle in. The Xynthar knew more about the Thoth device than Samira had ever imagined. This was no ordinary alien artifact. It was something far older and far more powerful. And the worst part was, she had no idea where it led or how to control it. Samira stood her ground. You've been hiding this from me, haven't you? You knew all along. You knew the device wasn't just a weapon, it's a key. And now, you're trying to take it from us. Xynthar's reptilian lips curled into a snarl. I don't need to explain myself to you, human. The Thoth inheritance is meant to serve the Xynthar. The gateway you've unlocked will bring us the power to control all realms of existence. And now that you're here, you'll be part of the final equation. Samira's mind raced. If Xynthar and his kind were truly after the power of the Thoth device, there was no telling what they could do with it. The Nexus, as he called it, could offer the Xynthar limitless possibilities, control of not just Earth, but of entire galaxies, timelines, and dimensions. She couldn't let that happen. We have to shut it down, Samira muttered under her breath. What? Graves looked at her in confusion. The device, Samira said, pointing toward the pulsating machine. We have to find a way to turn it off before the Xynthar can use it to open the Nexus permanently. We're in a place they can't control. If we can shut the gateway down, we might be able to stop them from getting what they want. Graves' eyes flickered with doubt, but he nodded. How? How do we even begin to understand what's going on here? Before Samira could respond, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The metallic surface of the world around them began to shift and hum, as if reacting to the presence of the Thoth device. We don't have much time, Xynthar hissed. The Nexus is awakening. You have no idea what you've unleashed. A chilling noise echoed in the distance, a low, resonant hum, like the sound of an enormous engine starting. The air grew colder, and the ground beneath them began to warp and bend. A massive shadow loomed over them. Suddenly, from the shifting landscape, vast mechanical forms began to emerge. They were like towering golems, their bodies composed of shifting metal and energy, their eyes glowing like stars. Samira had seen nothing like them before. They were ancient protectors, created to guard the Nexus, and they were awakening in response to the disturbance caused by the Thoth device. The Guardians, Xynthar spat. They have been dormant for eons. But now that the gateway is active, they will try to stop anyone from using it. Samira's heart pounded. The Guardians were like living machines, and from what she could tell, they were not friendly. The Xynthar's first instinct was to retreat, but Samira knew they didn't have time for that. We need to fight back, Samira said, her voice steely with determination. We can't let the Xynthar control this power. If we're going to survive, we need to find a way to stop those Guardians and get back to Earth. Graves, his face tense, nodded. We don't have a choice. The first Guardian lunged at them with terrifying speed. Its massive, metal limbs twisted and reformed as it advanced, a grotesque blend of organic and mechanical components. Samira barely had time to react as the Guardian swung its arm toward them. Graves pushed her aside just in time, but the force of the blow sent him tumbling across the metal ground. Michael! Samira screamed, rushing to his side. I'm fine, Graves grunted, standing up shakily. He pulled a small, glowing device from his jacket. This should work. He activated the device, and a pulse of energy shot from it, temporarily stunning the Guardian and sending it stumbling backward. But Samira knew it wouldn't last long. The Guardians were not like anything they had ever encountered. They were built to protect the Nexus from anyone who tried to control it. We need to move. Samira shouted. We can't fight them all. Let's find a way to shut down the device. The second Guardian, a towering beast with the face of a lion and the body of a serpent, advanced slowly, its glowing eyes fixed on them. As it opened its mouth, a blast of energy surged towards Samira and Graves. They dodged, but the energy beam struck the ground near them, creating a shockwave that threw them to the ground. The impact was powerful, and for a moment, Samira's vision blurred. Get up! Graves shouted, pulling her to her feet. We need to get to the core of the device, now. The Guardians were closing in fast. Samira didn't have time to think. She grabbed Graves' hand, and together, they ran toward the pulsating center of the Thoth device. The energy from the machine had begun to intensify, crackling and warping the air around them. Xynthar had disappeared, retreating into the shadows. He was waiting for them to fail, Samira realized. But she couldn't afford to fail. Not now. The very survival of their reality depended on her. The closer they got to the device, the more intense the energy became. It felt as though the very fabric of reality was coming apart. The Thoth device pulsed erratically, sending shockwaves through the ground. Samira could feel her heart racing in time with the machine's rhythms. "We're almost there," Graves shouted. "Just a little further." But just as they reached the base of the device, a familiar, terrible sound echoed through the air. The first Guardian was back, charging toward them with renewed fury. Samira turned toward the device and saw something that made her blood run cold. The interface, the mechanism to shut down the device, was right in front of her, but it was guarded by one final, massive obstacle. Another Guardian, larger and more terrifying than the others, stood between them and the Thoth device. And it was ready to strike. The massive Guardian stood before them, its towering form blocking the way to the Thoth device. Its body was a fusion of metal and living organic matter, shimmering with a terrifying energy. Its eyes glowed an intense blue, and it growled as its massive hands formed into deadly weapons. Samira could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on her. There was no turning back now. "We have to do this, now," Graves shouted, his voice desperate. "If we don't, everything we've worked for will be destroyed." Samira nodded, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She had no more time for doubts. The universe was at stake, and she had the key to stopping it. The Thoth device was the answer, if only she could figure out how to activate it properly. But standing between her and that goal was this terrifying machine. They had no choice but to face it. Without warning, the Guardian lunged, its massive claws cutting through the air like a deadly blade. Samira barely had time to react. She dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the swipe. Graves wasn't so lucky. The impact sent him crashing to the ground, his body rolling several feet. "Michael!" Samira cried, scrambling to help him. He groaned, but pushed himself up. "I'm fine. Just get to the device." Samira's heart raced, her mind working in overdrive. The energy from the Thoth device was growing stronger by the second, its hum reverberating through her bones. She knew they had mere moments before the Nexus was fully activated, before the fabric of reality began to tear apart. As the Guardian charged at them again, Samira felt a surge of determination. They couldn't defeat this creature in direct combat. The Guardians weren't just physical threats. They were bound to the very heart of the Thoth device. If they wanted to shut it down, they would need to find another way. Graves seemed to read her thoughts. He staggered to his feet and drew a small metallic device from his pocket, the same one he had used earlier to temporarily stun the first Guardian. "It won't hold them back for long," he warned, glancing at the approaching Guardian. "But it might buy us enough time." Samira took the device from him and activated it. A pulse of energy shot toward the Guardian, striking it directly in the chest. The creature staggered, its body glowing brightly as it struggled to recover. But it wasn't enough to stop it completely. It roared in fury and charged again, its massive claws raised to strike. "Go!" Graves shouted. "I'll hold it off." Samira hesitated, but then she turned and sprinted toward the Thoth device. She had no time to second-guess herself. The answers she sought were within reach. As she approached the glowing center of the machine, she saw the interface, a glowing panel covered with symbols, intricate geometric shapes, and lines of ancient code. It was both alien and familiar. The same patterns she had studied for weeks were now etched into her mind, and she knew, somehow, what she had to do. The Thoth device responded to her presence, and the symbols on the panel shifted as if they recognized her. Her fingers hovered over the glowing surface, tracing the geometric patterns in the air. The device hummed louder, sending vibrations through her body. Behind her, she heard Graves struggling to hold off the Guardian. His voice was strained, but she couldn't afford to turn back. She needed to finish this. As her hand touched the panel, the air seemed to ripple. The world around her shuddered. The device was reacting. The Nexus was opening. But Samira had no idea what would happen next. With one final movement, Samira completed the sequence. The Thoth device surged with light, and the very ground beneath her feet began to tremble. She could feel the reality around her bending, distorting. The Guardian howled in rage, but it was too late. Samira had done it. The light from the device reached its peak, and with a deafening pulse, the machine exploded in a burst of energy. The world around them distorted, reality itself warping like liquid in the wake of the blast. Time, space, and gravity all seemed to collapse into a singular point. The Nexus, the gateway to the unknown, was closing. And with it, the threat of the Xynthar's dominion over the universe was vanishing. For a moment, there was nothing. Silence. No sound, no light, no stars. Just emptiness. Then, with a sudden jolt, the world returned. Samira opened her eyes, and she gasped in shock. They were back. The Thoth device was gone, the landscape of the Nexus fading away like a distant dream. They stood once again in the ancient Egyptian pyramid, surrounded by the shattered remnants of the chamber. The Xynthar had been vanquished, and the Guardians had ceased to exist. Samira turned to see Graves standing beside her, breathless but alive. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. What happened? Graves finally asked, his voice hoarse. Samira shook her head, still processing everything. I don't know. The device, it closed the gateway. We're back, but... A sudden noise interrupted them. From the shadows of the pyramid, Cycroth, the Xynthar leader, emerged. He looked disoriented, as if he had just woken from a long slumber. His eyes glowed faintly, but his once threatening presence had been diminished. You think you've won? Cycroth sneered, though there was an edge of uncertainty in his voice. The Thoth inheritance is not so easily destroyed. There are other gateways across the universe. You may have shut down this one, but you have only delayed the inevitable. The Xynthar will rise again. Samira stepped forward, her expression resolute. Not today, Cycroth. Not anymore. Cycroth's eyes flickered with anger, but he made no move to attack. With a final, venomous glare, he turned and vanished into the shadows of the pyramid, leaving Samira and Graves standing together in the ruins. For a long moment, neither of them said a word. The world around them was silent, as though waiting for something to happen. Finally, Samira spoke, her voice quiet but filled with determination. It's over. For now. Graves nodded slowly, his expression somber. But it's not over for good, is it? Samira looked out across the ancient ruins, the remnants of the Thoth device's power still lingering in the air. She had no answers. All she knew was that the universe was far more complex than she had ever imagined, and the battle for the Thoth inheritance was far from finished.